My name is Clara Hayes, whose name has been changed. I live alone in a small apartment in an old neighborhood of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm not superstitious or a firm believer in the supernatural, but I have a particular curiosity about old items, historical stories, and strange things. I like to wander through antique shops and flea markets on weekends, looking for unique items that carry their own stories. On a late autumn day in 2022, while browse a small antique shop, tucked away in a secluded alley, I saw a particular item that caught my attention. It was a doll. The doll was placed in an old glass cage, looking a little out of place among the other antiques. It was shaped like a baby boy, handmade, with a meticulously painted face, large round eyes, and a small smile on its lips. It wore a dark fabric outfit. Although it looked like a normal doll, it carried a very unique atmosphere, a strange stillness, and a gaze, very alive. The seller was a quirky old man, with sharp eyes. When I asked about the doll, he just smiled mysteriously. "Ah, that doll," he said softly. "A special item, young lady. It comes from very far away." He didn't specify where it came from. I asked more, and he just said it was a type of doll that carried a spirit, brought back by a collector from Asia. I suddenly remembered Kuman Thong, which I had heard about before. A shiver mixed with intense curiosity. I decided to buy the doll, not because I wanted to pray for luck or anything, just simply because it was too unique and mysterious. Its price wasn't too expensive. I brought the doll home and placed it on the bookshelf in the living room. I called it Night Box. Not the real name of Kuman Thong, just a name I gave it myself, because it seemed to carry darkness and mystery. The journey of Night Box from Philadelphia to my apartment had begun. I didn't know that bringing this strange item home would open a door to a world I knew nothing about. I placed Night Box, the Kuman Thong doll, on the bookshelf in the living room. It sat there, silent, its glass eyes looking straight ahead. During the day, it was just a normal doll, a strange decorative item. But after Night Box had been in my apartment for a few days, I started to notice unusual things. Very small, very difficult to explain. For example, sometimes, when I walked past the bookshelf, I felt as if the doll had shifted its position slightly. I thought it was just me accidentally bumping into it, or the shelf surface wasn't level. Then, other objects also began to show unexplained movements. My house keys. I always left them on the small table near the front door. But a few times, I found the keys moved from their original spot, as if someone had picked them up and put them down somewhere else. The living room window. I always closed it tightly before going to bed. But some mornings, I found the window slightly ajar. I was sure I had closed it tightly the night before. Doors in the apartment. Sometimes I saw them automatically open a short distance, then close softly. I thought perhaps my old apartment was affected by drafts, or the building was settling. But those explanations weren't entirely logical. The anomaly began to creep into my daily life. I started feeling watched. When I was alone in the apartment, I always had the feeling that someone was standing behind me, staring at me. That feeling was very strong, even though no one was there. These unexplained movements weren't immediately terrifying, but they made me puzzled and a little uneasy. They weren't loud incidents of things falling over, just small shifts, doors opening slightly on their own, They seemed purposeful, as if someone was trying to do something in my apartment. I started thinking about Nightbox. Was that doll the cause? I looked at the Kuman Thong doll sitting silently on the bookshelf. Its empty glass eyes looking straight ahead. I tried to find a logical explanation. But there was no logical explanation for the unexplained movements happening in my apartment. The anomaly began, and Nightbox seemed to be at the center of it all. The unexplained movements in my apartment became clearer and more frequent. They were no longer just small shifts that I could ignore. At night, as I was trying to fall asleep, I started hearing noises. Faint footsteps walking around in the living room. Rattling sounds as if someone was touching objects. Then, I heard the kitchen cabinet doors automatically opening and closing. The sound of dishes gently clinking against each other in the kitchen. Those sounds were very real. Very clear. They weren't my imagination. I lay in bed, my heart pounding, listening to the noises in the empty apartment. I knew that Nightbox wasn't just a doll. There was something inside it. And that thing was active. One night, as I was working on my computer in the living room, I suddenly saw a small shadow flit by very quickly at the edge of my vision. The shadow was very blurry. But I was sure I saw it. It looked like the shape of a small child, gliding across the floor, then disappearing into the darkness. I was startled and turned my head quickly, but saw nothing. The clearer manifestations of the anomaly made me feel much more scared. It wasn't just unexplained movements anymore. Now it was noises, and even fleeting figures. I started feeling that the Kuman Thong was trying to communicate with me. Or trying to do something that I didn't understand. Sometimes, I felt as if the doll's eyes were looking directly at me. As if it had real life. I tried to stay calm. But fear crept deeper and deeper into my life. I started researching more about Kuman Thong online. I read about its history, how it is created, and stories related to it. I read about Kuman Thong being said to contain the spirits of dead children. Often children who were abandoned or died tragically. They are fed with milk and sweets, and are said to bring good luck to their owners. But I also read about more terrifying stories. About Kuman Thong that could become evil if not cared for properly. Or if the spirit inside it had too much anger or resentment. The clearer manifestations of the unusual things in the apartment made me believe that the stories about Kuman Thong were real. And I had brought something not simple home. More than just shadows. It was a spirit. The unexplained phenomena caused by Nightbox were becoming increasingly purposeful. It was no longer just randomly making noise or moving objects. Its actions seemed to be directed towards something specific. I noticed that the objects being moved were often things related to leaving the apartment. My house keys, always placed near the front door, were frequently moved right to the edge of the table, as if someone had picked them up and put them down there, ready to go. Sometimes, my coat, hanging on a hook near the door, would fall to the floor, or the handbag I usually used for work would be found placed closer to the door than usual. The doors in the apartment, especially the front door, were often found slightly ajar, even when I was sure I had closed and locked them carefully. It seemed like Nightbox was trying to get out, or trying to show me something related to getting out. The mysterious purpose of the Kuman Thong doll sent shivers down my spine. Why did it want to get out? Where did it want to go? What did it want to do? I tried putting more milk and candies, talking to Nong, asking it what it wanted. But the doll remained silent on the shelf, its empty glass eyes looking straight ahead. Only the paranormal phenomena in the apartment answered me. The faint footsteps walking around in the apartment sounded like someone searching for an exit. The slight scratching at the door, like someone trying to open it. I felt as if the energy in the apartment was getting heavier, gloomier. My fear grew stronger. I knew that Nightbox wasn't just a harmless child spirit. There was something else, some purpose behind its actions. This mysterious purpose made me more puzzled and scared than even the paranormal phenomena themselves. It was trying to achieve something, and I didn't know if that something was good or bad. Keys pointing towards the door. Door ajar. Objects ready for a trip. As if Nightbox was preparing for a journey. A journey I didn't know where it would lead. And that terrified me completely. The little ghost in the doll had a mysterious purpose. And I was right in the middle of that journey. The mysterious purpose of Nightbox. The fact that it seemed to be trying to get out of the apartment made me uneasy. I knew that I needed to find out more about this doll. About its true origin. I decided to go back to the antique shop where I had bought it. I hoped the quirky seller would provide me with more information. When I returned to the shop, the old seller was still there. I asked him about the Kuman Thong doll that I had bought. He looked at me for a moment. His sharp eyes seemed to know exactly what had happened. "Oh, young lady, that doll, it carries a story," he said softly, his voice full of mystery. I pleaded with him to tell me. After a little hesitation, he agreed. He said that doll wasn't a normal Kuman Thong. It was made by a sorcerer in a remote rural area of Thailand. From the ashes of a child who had died tragically. That child didn't die naturally. It was murdered. A murder that happened many years ago. A small child was brutally killed. And its spirit was full of anger and resentment. The sorcerer used the child's ashes to create this doll, with the purpose of revenge. The old seller said that the collector who brought the doll back from Thailand had encountered a lot of trouble and fear. So he sold it to him. Hearing this, I shivered violently. I had brought a spirit full of anger and desire for revenge home. That was why Nightbox had been making unexplained movements. Why it was trying to get out of the apartment. It was trying to find the person who had murdered it, or those related to its death. The mysterious purpose was now clear. Its purpose was revenge, and I was right in the middle of a vengeful journey of a resentful child spirit. Traces of the child's tragic death had been revealed. I quickly thanked the old seller and left the shop. My head was spinning. What should I do now? I couldn't keep that doll in the house anymore. It was too dangerous. It wouldn't stop until it achieved its purpose. I returned to the apartment with extreme fear, looking at the Kuman Thong doll sitting silently on the bookshelf. I felt as if it was looking at me with a different gaze. A gaze full of anger and desire for revenge. I knew that tonight, things would get much worse. The horrifying truth being revealed had opened a terrifying new chapter. The little ghost in the doll wasn't just a trapped spirit. It was a hunter. The horrifying truth that Nightbox was the spirit of a murdered child seeking revenge made me live in extreme fear. I knew I couldn't keep it in the house anymore. But I also didn't know what to do to get rid of it safely. That night, fear crept into every corner of the apartment. I sat on the sofa, staring at the Kuman Thong doll on the bookshelf. It still sat there quietly, but I could feel a strong evil energy radiating from it. Around midnight, the phenomena began to happen, more intensely than ever before. Noises everywhere in the apartment. The sound of objects being thrown to the floor. Doors slamming shut. Glass shattering. As if a hurricane was raging inside the house. But it wasn't wind. It was night box. I heard small footsteps running throughout the apartment, very fast, eerie giggling, echoing in the darkness. Then, the noises concentrated at the front door. Loud scratching on the door. The doorknob being violently shaken, as if someone was trying to break down the door to get out. The little spirit's rage had erupted. I knew it was trying to escape to find its killer. I sat there, curled up in fear, not daring to move. I was terrified of what it would do if it got out. I heard objects in the living room being knocked over. The sound of glass shattering from the window. Then, the noises suddenly stopped. An eerie silence enveloped the apartment. My heart pounded. And then, I heard another sound. Crying. The crying was no longer weak like before. The crying sounded very loud, very painful, and full of anger. The crying seemed to come from all over the apartment. Then, I saw a small, blurry figure appeared in the middle of the living room. The figure looked like a small child, surrounded by a faint light, and on its face was an expression of intense rage. Its eyes, though blurry, but I could feel the hatred and desire for revenge within them. It looked straight at me. The little spirit's rage had manifested. I screamed in fear, jumping up from the sofa. The figure suddenly rushed towards me. Very fast. I quickly ran into the bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. I stood leaning against the door, gasping for breath, trembling all over. I heard loud pounding on the door, scratching sounds. It was trying to get in here. The battle tonight had begun. Finally, the noises outside gradually weakened, then stopped. I don't know if it had left, or if it was just waiting. I stood there, leaning against the door, in the darkness, trembling with fear. I knew that my life would never return to normal. I had brought something evil into the house, and it would not let me go easily. The little spirit's rage would forever haunt me, and I knew that the price of curiosity and yearning for strange things was too high. If you enjoyed these true horror stories, or stories based on accounts and unexplained mysteries, like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the channel to follow our latest videos. We will bring you more terrifying and haunting stories. Thank you for listening.